Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the APNIC AGM at APNIC 45. We would formally start this meeting now. The first item today is the APNIC EC elections. So I'll hand it off to our election chair, Mr. Subhash Dakkal, Director of the Department of IT, Government of Nepal, to proceed with the APNIC Executive Council election business. And then we will... I do the election procedures. Oh, okay. Oh, sorry. Looked at the wrong notes. But before I invite Subhashji, I'll ask Craig to do a presentation on APNIC election procedures. And then we'll have Subhashji do his talk. Thanks.
Okay, good morning. My name is Craig Ng. I'm APNIC's General Counsel. I'll be running through the election procedures for the APNIC EC election. Every year, 3 APNIC EC retires by rotation after having served a 2-year term. The EC who are retiring by rotation are eligible for re-election under APNIC's bylaws. So there are 3 vacant seats on the APNIC EC for a 2-year term starting from today upon their election. This is the election timeline. So you can see that from about 4th January this year, the nomination period opened, and that nomination period concluded on the 12th of February. Online voting and proxy appointment opened on the 14th of February, and that closed a few days ago on the 26th of February. Today is your opportunity to exercise online voting, on-site voting, and the on-site voting will open when our election chair announces it. Voting entitlements. Current APNIC members, corporate contact, and authorized contacts with voting rights can vote. The number of votes are determined by the membership tier of each member. You can see that it ranges from 1 vote to 64 votes depending on the membership tier. On-site voting, as I said, commences today and ends today. So it will commence when announced by the election chair this morning, and that would conclude at 14:30 local time today here. Ballot paper would be able to be collected from the booth outside of this room from any time after the election chair opens the election, and that would conclude again at 2:30 this afternoon, 14:30 local time. The ballot box is placed near the voting desk, and after the election chair opens the on-site voting. So there are various ballot papers available. They're marked with 1, 2, 4, 8, or 16 votes. You can exchange your votes like you do currency. So if you are entitled to 16 votes, you can collect 2 lots of ballot paper with 8, or 8 lots of ballot paper with 2, or 16 ones, for example. The instructions are clearly marked on the ballot papers. This is what the ballot paper look like. On the back of the ballot paper, there is an authentication stamp, and only ballot papers with those marking are valid. The results of the election will be declared today at 3:30 p.m. local time. The election chair, when he announces the election results, will also disclose whether there's been any disputes and how those disputes have been resolved. He will also disclose any communication between him and the election scrutineers regarding any anomaly or issues. The results will be declared according to this format. So the election chair will receive the results in this format, and he will be reading it in this order. The candidates and their votes will be announced in order of the highest vote to the lowest. For this election, the current APNIC EC has appointed Subhash Dakal, Director, Department of IT, from the Government of Nepal as election chair. The APNIC EC has also appointed George Kuo and Connie Chan as election officers. They've also appointed George Odagi, Pupudu Jayasinghe, and Tuan Nguyen as election tellers. The election chair has in turn appointed John Sweeting and Sergio Rojas as election scrutineers. If there is any disputes or complaints regarding the conduct of the election, they must be lodged in writing with the election chair, and that must be lodged 1 hour before the scheduled declaration of election. That means if there is any disputes, that dispute or complaint must be lodged by 2:30 p.m. today in writing to the election chair. The disputes can only be lodged by the nominees, any of the nominees for election, or members through the authorized voting representative. So if you are neither of those people, you are not entitled to lodge a dispute. The election chair has the discretion to resolve the dispute. Are there any questions? Okay, I will now invite the election chair, Subhash Dakal, to commence the election proceedings. Thank you.
Thank you, Craig. Good morning, everybody. As Craig said, I am Subhash Dakal, so I work for Government of Nepal, so currently as a director in Department of IT. So, and the remaining, apart from this, so I'm also involved in other activities like national and regional internet governance initiatives, and I represent Nepal in ICANN Government Advisory Committee. So I'm honored to be appointed as election chair by APNIC Executive Council. Before we start the election procedures, so I'd like to make a disclosure. So Government of Nepal is also a member of APNIC, so as it receives the service from the APNIC. And I'm as a director of IT, so I'm a default corporate contacts, but Government of Nepal don't participate in any EC elections or any sort of elections in APNIC, and it has never been voted in any elections procedures of the APNIC. So my objectives here is to ensure the fair and smooth elections. So before we start the voting process, I'd like to invite the nominees one by one and give them 2 minutes to explain their visions and then objectives to be Executive Council member. So we'll have a timer, and so after the 2 minutes, we'll cut off. So most probably, if technically possible, we'll cut off the sound systems also. So I'll try to request all the nominees to be strict in the time of 2 minutes. So after all the seven nominees, so put their statements of who are available. If any nominees is not present and he has a nomination statement provided to the APNIC, so the APNIC staff will read out. And after that, we'll seal the ballot box and they start the voting process. So I'd like to invite all the nominees in the order they have submitted nominations. So first nominee is Cam Young. So I'd like to invite him to speak for 2 minutes about his visions to be a EC member.
So hello, morning, everyone. So my name is Cam Young. First of all, I would like to introduce a little bit of myself. So I was, I'm a principal network architect of Akamai. In my job, I'm doing the capacity planning, interconnection, peering for the Akamai deployment in the whole Asia Pacific. I actually started my career in the internet industry since 2001 when I was joining the Asia Global Crossing at the time as a network engineer. So in that time, I have been actively involved in the network expansion in the whole Asia. So I built the network infrastructure for the whole Asia. So this job actually enabled me to have a broad view of how the Asia internet looks like, because I'm not only building the backbone, but I'm also have to interact with a lot of internet companies. So that's why I could understand the local internet landscape of the internet industry. And other than my job, I've been involved in a lot of community work. So one of them is, you can see I'm one of the program committee of HKNOC, and I was also involved in the APNIC called APN 2011 as an infrastructure committee, and from there I built the network infrastructure for the conference itself. And since then we formed the HKNOC, which is promoting the internet community, exchanging knowledge for the local Hong Kong operators. And out of Hong Kong, I've been also involved in like the Peering Asia working group, which promoting the peering interconnection for the Asia. And other than that, I also have been attending a lot of regional conference like HKNOC, MINOC, JANOC, etc. So this kind of activity enabled me to have a lot of interaction with the telco members, which is definitely one of the APNIC members. So I have a lot of relationship and connection with the APNIC members, and that's why I could understand, communicate with them to understand their requirement and needs. And yeah, so my main motivation is I hope to leverage on my technical and regional experience.
Thank you, Camps. So I'd like to invite another nominee, Rajesh Sharia, to make his speech.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning and namaste, everyone. With the blessing of the Lord Shiva in Kathmandu, it's the Pashupatinath temple. We are getting blessed in the apricot, everyone. I'm not new for this community. I started coming into the APNIC since 2006 and started to learn a lot from this community, which helped me in learning a lot. Apart from the 2016, I got elected as a APNIC EC and APNIC Secretary, also Council. Apart from this post, I am also the President of the ISP Association of India and Director of the NICSI, taking care of the NIR of India. I am seeking blessings from you for the EC post again. Since I started my journey to be the part of this family APNIC since 2006, from over a decade, I had a privilege of learning a lot from stalwarts like Akinori-san, Kuo sir, Dr. Kenny, Gaurav, Chihu, and Mayan, Paul, and did not mind in learning from the younger, not in age, but at least in skill. From Izumi and Jessica, learned a lot. Through this learning, I was able to present the policy discussion, policy presentation, and through the bottom-up approach, getting it approved for the larger benefit of us. Policy number 53 of IVF4 reallocation is the example. I am deeply involved in the serving and organizing the regional community like SANOG, APR, IGF, and now we are starting the INOC for the India, which will be happening every year in the August, and especially we are doing into the regional language so that we should be able to create the job opportunities into tier 2 and tier 3 cities and also into the rural India, because the India has got 65% population. Lot of communities helping and lot of things has been done. Lastly, I firmly believe that we need to maintain the core value of our company.
Thank you, Mr. Rajesh. So then our next nominee is Saurabh Sorin, but unfortunately he is unable to attend this meeting, and I think as for I'm informed from the APNIC staff, so he has not provided any nomination statement. So we'll move to the another nominee. So the next nominee is Roopinder Singh Parha. So I'd like to invite him to put his speech. Thank you.
Dear colleagues, I am Roopinder Singh Parhar from India. I am President Strategy and Planning for my company. I specialize in setting up low-cost internet broadband networks for community service, bringing up internet connections at less than $5. I have been with this industry from 2004 and been involved with APNIC from 2006 onwards. What I would like to, my profile is already there. I am a EC member of the Internet Service Providers Association of India, and for the last 2 years with the APNIC as a EC member. What I would like to tell you here is, more importantly is, for what we have gathered is, what is that we have done in APNIC. What, as your representative on this board, what I have tried to do is use all my experience in human resource management, company structures, operations, financial management more importantly, to assist APNIC to perform the member services duties as diligently as possible. It's a very fine organization, but then like any organization, it constantly needs mentoring and this thing, and we have got a very fine EC board. And we've done a lot of work in that. So that is what I have been able to do, attended a lot of meetings, learned a lot, because the amount of information that has to be learned is fantastic. It takes time, it takes effort, and it is after having attended ICANN, IGF, and other such meetings that I have realized how much I did not know. So in the last 2 years, I have built up my knowledge, and now I am set to go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Roopinder. Our next nominee is Billy Moo Cheon. Unfortunately, he is also unable to present physically in this meeting, but he has provided his brief nomination statement. So I'd like to request APNIC staff, Mr. George, to read his statement. Thank you.
Dear APNIC members, I would like to apologise for not making my candidacy statement. I had an unseen event in Korea and had to leave early, but I would like to take this opportunity to thank my friends who supported me for the EC election once again. I have been with this community since 2000. Since then, I had fully experienced our community works. I once participated in policy SIG discussions and endorsed policies as an EC member. I have worked closely with other countries for address resources matters in NIR SIG, also served as the co-chair of the Cooperation SIG. We have enjoyed the internet address resource for many years, but time changed with new technologies including Internet of Things, blockchain, AI, and security matters. We cannot stay as it was before. We have to think about what we can do, what can be done for our community's sustainable growth. I have some experiences with my company KISA, Korea Internet and Security Agency, and intergovernmental organizations in this area. And I believe all my experiences will help me to make a good EC member who brings new perspectives and visions for the community. Thanks.
Thank you, George. So the next nominee is Mr. Benjamin Naibao. So I'd like to invite him in the stage.
Hi everyone, my name is Benjamin Naibaho. I am head of IDNIC, Indonesian Network Information Center. I graduated from University of Indonesia and also Astronautical Engineering, University of UCLA, USA. Currently, I have knowledgeable also in area of internet infrastructure. I'm very familiar with internet, satellite, fiber optic, data center industries in my 25 years services. I also active in participate as a speaker also in every APNIC Hostmaster and technical group meeting in APNIC. My regional responsibility is in level 1 in Indonesia. I hope my experience services in APNIC EC will certainly benefit in the APNIC community as whole. I have understanding, expertise, background knowledge, and skill which is required for functioning as effective representative of APNIC community. I hope that you can also support me as EC APNIC member, and I hope I can also give my best support for you all. For all information about myself, it's already shown in apricot election nominee. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Benjamin. So our next nominee is ASM Khairul Akhtar Chowdhury. Unfortunately, he is also unable to attend this meeting, but he has provided brief statement. So I'd like to request Mr. George to read that statement on his behalf.
I am an IT manager with over 27 years of practical hands-on experience in network operations, highly motivated, diligent, and effective network and security professional with a track record of building academic, university, and industry customer-driven organization. Background in highly available network design, process development, data center operations, technical consulting, security analysis, vendor management, and project management. Proficient in 24/7 operations, outcome-focused, customer-oriented professional with a proven track record, developed and managed diverse teams. I have held several positions in the past, including positions in such as a system and network engineer. I'm currently involved in Bangladesh National Enterprise Architecture Development. Now I'm working one of the pioneering Science and Technological University in Bangladesh. With my extensive technical background lasting over 27 years, I believe that I can serve effectively as APNIC's EC member. Due to my extensive contacts in the ISP community and my involvement in other forums and communities, I can influence people. I am in a good position to help APNIC to achieve its goal. As a member of EC, I would like to get involved in developing policies and procedures and influence the community members for the benefit of the internet community. So I'm requesting to give me a chance to serve on the EC of APNIC.
Thank you, Mr. Josh, and all the nominees who has for your speeches. So now we'll move to the next stage of the election. In this stage, we'll demonstrate that the ballot box is empty and we'll seal the ballot box. So I'd like to request the APNIC staff, Mr. George. He is also our election officer. So you can see the ballot box is empty. So what do we do? So ballot box will be placed outside this hall. So, and so we can place it.
Okay, you can start voting now. But before I go on to the next part, can I request people to kind of move on this side of the room? Because this side is full, this side is fairly empty. Some exercise, early morning exercise, please. I know a lot of people in the audience. I don't want to call names, so please.
So I'd like to
Just from the
inform, I'd like to inform the ballot box will be there and constantly monitored by election tailors. And I'd like to remind everyone that voting ends at the 2:30 local time. So this is the next reminder. So I'd like to request Mr. Sonny to make another reminder in 1 p.m. so before we go to the launch, so that so anybody who is absent right now also can be informed about this deadline. So now I'd like to declare that election process is open. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Subhasi. We go on to the regular APNIC AMM. Before we proceed, I would like to request my fellow EC members to come up the stage. Okay, thank you. I'll do a very quick introduction of the fellow EC members before we proceed. I'll start from the end there. Roopinder Singh Parhar from Net Plus Broadband in India. Kenny Huang from TWNIC. Kamzi Yung from Akamai in Hong Kong. You know me and Paul. Rajesh Saria from ISPI and CJ Online in India. And Jessica Sen from CNNIC. We are missing Izumi on the stage here. Izumi, I think almost all of you probably know her very well. She had some last-minute health issues last week, so she had to bail out from traveling to Kathmandu. She is with us virtually throughout the meeting today and will be participating remotely in the AMM. Now I'd like to request Paul to proceed with the APNIC Activity Report 2017.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for being here at the APNIC AGM. I've got about a half an hour presentation here about APNIC activities for 2017, which I hope is of great interest to you. We'll start with the vision statement. APNIC works for a global, open, stable and secure internet that serves the entire Asia-Pacific community. We are reporting and organising our activities these days among these three major groups. You may have seen them before. We primarily are here to serve APNIC members, but also since the beginning to work for supporting internet development in the region, and also doing our work by cooperating and collaborating with the global internet community, including, which of course includes the regional internet community. But this report is organised according to those three major activity areas, and I'll start with serving APNIC members. The membership is continuing to grow. This chart shows the number of direct members of APNIC in blue and the number of organisations who have joined and received service through NIRs in orange. So we have something over 14,000 organisations in total that we serve through NIRs or directly by APNIC, and something over 6,500 direct members of APNIC. You might notice membership growth is healthy but was a little bit slower in 2017 than in 2016. Moving on to the actual resource activities, IPv6 delegations. They reduced last year, and you can see that that's due to a fairly sharp reduction in East Asia for some reason. Likewise, IPv4 delegations are down a bit last year, also due to reductions in East Asia and to some extent in South Asia as well. IPv4 transfers have been increasing, not to a huge rate of transfers, only between around 270 in the last year, which is far lower than other RIRs. But this also shows a reduction within the APNIC region, but a pretty healthy increase in transfers between RIR regions. And those transfers are, the vast majority of them are transfers from the ARAN region into the APNIC region. So we're kind of importing IPv4 address space from the ARAN region mostly. The total number of addresses transferred also dropped last year. This is something that's been fairly erratic over the years and months, because you can have single large transfers which kind of dominate the total numbers. ASM delegations also coming down a little bit, this time due to a decrease in Oceania. It's sort of interesting in the last year that we're seeing these decreases in activity. It's not clear whether that's going to continue in future, and particularly when we see, as reported yesterday, pretty healthy ongoing increase in growth in other RIR regions. So both LACNIC and RIPE NCC both showed accelerating growth in their regions. So it's a bit hard to tell whether in our region, which accounts for a huge amount of internet growth, it's a bit hard to know why we would be decreasing, or whether that's going to continue in future. We've taken a fairly, a more conservative approach to our projections for this year as a result of this slowdown. So you'll see that in the financial reporting later on, that we're not counting on an increase in growth this year, but let's see what happens. This is a chart of our resource holdings, the number and percentage of members holding IPv4, IPv6, ASNs, and any combination of those three. The main one that we like to report on here is that IPv6 holdings at the moment are with 57% of members, and that's increased from 50% at the beginning of last year. So that's a pretty healthy increase and a good sign in increasing preparedness for moving to IPv6. Now, I've got a few slides now about specific member services that are provided. In the first place, Registry Services. APNIC is a regional internet registry. The registry word is really increasingly important these days. Although over the years, I think many people see RIRs as a source of IP addresses, the registry is something that we really need to keep emphasising and keep developing, because it is the primary purpose that we have to provide that public record, that public database through WHOIS mostly, that allows anyone in the world to see who has got particular IP addresses which are allocated in our region. So we upgraded the master server and the server configurations during this year to the RIPE server version 4. That server software includes RDAP code, which was written and contributed by APNIC. And you may be aware that RDAP is the Registration Data Access Protocol. It's part of what ICANN refers to as the next generation WHOIS, and it allows a much more structured, programmatic, and fully featured access to WHOIS data. So we do have an RDAP server, which of course takes its information from the RIPE WHOIS database that we're running, And you can see a couple of URLs there. If you haven't used RDAP, then you can learn about what RDAP is all about there. Another thing that we've been working on this year, in the last year, is more on the content of the database itself. There's a new organisation object in the RIPE schema, so we are now moving all of our members over so that there is a single organisation object associated with every membership, and that provides a much cleaner view of how individual organisations in the database, which correspond to members, hold a specific set of resources. And that's something that we're tracking quite closely, because we really are hoping to get all members moved across into that new structure sometime, I'd say, during this year. We're roughly at about 2/3 of members, and we're tracking them across the region. A couple of other attribute changes to WHOIS as well have happened, and I think what this shows is that we're going to keep developing the WHOIS database to suit the needs of its users, and as always, very interested in finding out what are the particular interests of APNIC members in access to WHOIS services. You can see at the bottom there that we're serving 470 WHOIS queries per second, average over 2017, and 5 RDAP queries per second on average over the year. So that's a pretty healthy query load on our services. A new development at APNIC is WHOWAS. So particularly with increasing transfers which change WHOIS records more rapidly than previously, it's becoming more important to see not just what the current state of WHOIS is, but what may have been in the past. And so we have been able to load up to provide this interface into a historical view of WHOIS and load up all of the transaction records from the past. So you can actually have a look at the entire history of any particular internet resource or any particular WHOIS object in the database by going to this interface. And it's got a timeline interface. It allows you to see the history of changes back for at least the last 10 years, and also to look at a difference between objects that have been changed once, or between sets of changes that have happened to an object. So that's also available there, and I guess we should be reporting on how much use that is getting, but it's something that's new and still being promoted to those who need it. Now, moving on to RPKI, Resource Certification. That is the service by which we're issuing digital certificates which represent the resource holdings of individual organisations. And not only that, but the ROAs, the routing origin authentication objects, which actually tell the routing system, or those in the routing system who are listening, it tells them whether your routing origin request actually is authenticated and authorised. So on the administrative side, we've extended availability of resource certification to historical resource holders in the last year. We've deployed a new user interface in MyAPNIC that makes management of your RPKI and ROAs consistent with your routing registry objects. We've implemented we've prepared for implementation of a new Delta protocol for exchange of RAR, RPKI information between RARs. That's RFC 8182. That's ready for release during this quarter. We've been running the Ready to Roa campaigns. If you don't have a T-shirt with this tiger on it, then you can get one if you visit one of the Hostmaster consultations, and if you are able to then get your ROAs registered in the RPKI system. We changed over this year in a coordinated manner with the other RARs to a new trust anchor configuration. So each of the RARs now has an independent trust anchor that is the single trust anchor that you may need to recognise to see all APNIC resources. That's in the interests of simplifying and making the RPKI system a little more manageable and reliable. And there's some statistics there on our rate of resource certification in the region. So we now have, I won't go through it all, but we now have 3.34% of all IPv4 allocated covered now under ROAs, and that's a pretty small percentage of IPv4 space, obviously, but we're tracking this and encouraging more registration of ROAs in order to increase that coverage. Moving on to training and technical assistance. Last year we trained nearly 2,000 people face-to-face at 61 locations. Something new, which you may have heard about this week, is that we have a network now of community trainers, which is growing. There's 11 registered community trainers at the moment. They helped out with 21 of the 61 courses that we delivered last year, and that's something which we really hope to increase to allow us to provide more training in more places and to also work better with members of the community who are interested to help. We're also delivering training in online live e-learning sessions, also training videos that you can find on the website. And a new thing which I'll talk about is our APNIC Academy. We're developing a new courseware, particularly in response to demand. We've upgraded our network security course. We've also introduced a new SDN course which started with in our APNIC 44 meeting. That's very popular and under a lot of demand. And we're providing technical assistance where we can, where members are particularly needing additional help beyond the normal training, and that happened in 17 cases last year. I mentioned the APNIC Academy. Here it is. It was launched in April in 2017. It's a freely accessible certificate course platform, and in the last year we had just 2 courses, Introduction to Cybersecurity and the Internet Resource Management courses, but we had 1,852 enrolments. We had 318 certificates delivered through that system just in its first sort of 8 or 9 months of operation. A new Routing Basics course has just been put up on the system, and we've got a pretty busy schedule of launching more courses on that during the coming year as a major way to get APNIC training more accessed and more available around the region. A few notes here on infrastructure services. These are really improvements to our back-end infrastructure, not things that you would necessarily see, but it's all about increasing the availability and the reliability of APNIC services with more DNS Anycast, with network switching and monitoring firewalls, improved inter-site links between our data centers, improved bandwidth and redundancy, and a bunch of OS and software upgrades which help with our virtualization and management of virtual servers and so forth. We are following the ISO 27001 security management framework as well, so we've not been certified for that yet, but we are following that and have gone through an audit and assigned roles and responsibilities within the organisation to make sure that we're following that standard as closely as we can. And moving along to the activities of supporting regional internet development. So these are our activities which go back to the very beginning of APNIC in our contribution to internet development in the region. Because the policy process is open, it's not just a member process. We include policy in this area. You may have heard during the week at the Policy SIG about policies implemented during the last year. We had 4 of them, all concerning IPv4 and IPv6 management. We also have been working pretty hard to increase awareness of the policy process, and that's really paid off in the last couple of meetings, particularly APNIC 44 and I'd say here in Kathmandu as well. We've really tried to increase awareness. We've updated web content. We've promoted the policy process at NOG briefings and also in 1 or 2 webinars prior to APNIC meetings. We've done translations. We also at APNIC 44 ran what we called a mock policy SIG, so a kind of a rehearsal for the policy SIG, which seemed to help very much as well. Technical community development activities. We do a lot of work with NOGs. The network operator groups are a really important and valuable and very available way for APNIC to be able to serve members better in different places around the region. There were 24 different NOG events that we participated in last year. We're also continuing to install and support root server mirrors around the region, not at quite the rate that we used to, and I've got a little bit more about some developments that we've undertaken instead of just continually deploying new root servers. That'll come up in a minute. MOUs with CERTs, with different organisations around the region. We're continuing to increase our coordination, collaboration in that way. We have supported IXPs in Papua New Guinea and Fiji, which have been established just in the last year. And we've done that in some cases with Internet Society as well, which has got a big interest in IXP development. 48 fellows came to APNIC 44, and 23 of those were females, and we also have extended fellowship to allow returning fellows. That's people who've been fellows before and would like to come back, and if the fellowship committee finds that that they mount a good case for a second fellowship, then they can certainly come back. Sponsorship of 40 regional events, and nearly half of those were sponsorships for NOGs. So as I say, the network operator groups really are recognised as a fantastic way to assist in community internet development. So we do what we can to support them. Always interested to support new NOGs that may be formed in different parts of the region as well. So bear that in mind if you're in an economy around the region that needs a NOG. I mentioned on the root server deployment, we had a budget last year for root server deployment which wasn't entirely spent, so we redirected some of that funding to support and to sponsor the ISC, the Internet Systems Consortium, to implement RFC 8198, which is for something called aggressive NSEC caching in DNS resolvers. And what that means is that a resolver that has this feature implemented, that is from bind 9.12, that resolver can essentially remember negative query results that might come from the root, and it no longer will consistently refer what will be bad queries off to the root. So given that something like, well over half of the queries that go to root servers are actually for non-existent domain names, this is pretty important and potentially very powerful in reducing the load on the root servers. So anyone who's running bind, if you're upgrading to bind 9.1, then your resolvers are going to perform more rapidly because they'll do this caching, and you'll also contribute to lessening the load on the root server system. Okay, moving along to security. I think we all know how important security is these days. You've told APNIC through survey results for at least the last 4 years that security is on the top of your priority list, even above IPv6 these days. So we're responding. We're doing a lot more security training and outreach, training for APNIC members and the APNIC community, 30 different courses, but also training for other stakeholders who rely on WHOIS. So in particular, law enforcement agents really need to understand WHOIS. They need to understand a few things around WHOIS, like address structure, IP addressing, address the hierarchical management system, routing, and so forth. We are providing that training as well. 4 events last year. Plenty of other engagements in a whole stack of different security and related forums, 37 different engagements last year. We've signed MOUs again with FIRST for continuing collaboration on events. So we had FIRST technical events in Apricot last year and in APNIC 44. Ardley was re-elected to the FIRST board, so he works pretty hard on that. It's a very busy board. We have an additional internet security specialist, Jamie, on the team, and we had 55 security blog posts last year. So you can see more about security on apnic.net/security. Also on the security side, we've got quite a lot of expertise these days on staff in the establishment and running of CERTs, of what's called computer emergency response teams, or otherwise known as CSIRTs. But it's all about security incident response, and we have been working trying to support CERTs, existing and startup CERTs in the region. So for instance, we helped to get cert.to, the Tonga cert, off the ground in 2016 and have continued to support it during the year. And likewise, just recently, after some development workshops in Papua New Guinea, the cert PNG was launched. So we've been been doing this activity, we've been responding to this need for a few years now, looking now in the Pacific at Fiji, Vanuatu and Western Samoa in addition. And that's all about mentoring, training and technical assistance. But also during the last year, through the foundation, we received a 200,000 funding grant for 2 years of continuing support for certs in the Pacific. So that's something that's assisted in APNIC's existing activities. And it's a good example of what the foundation is able to bring into APNIC to help us to do more of what we're already doing. I mentioned security first and IPv6 second. That's the priority order, at least for most members these days. But V6 is still a huge priority. We still support the transition to V6 as the future of the internet and hope that our region will keep moving in a healthy way towards IPv6. 24 face-to-face trainings on IPv6 were part of the total that I mentioned before. 700 plus trainees, e-learning sessions, also IPv6 awareness presentations at different events. We're working and have been for many years with the ITU on IPv6 related workshops. We've revamped web pages and added success stories, deployment success stories, of which there are quite a few these days. We worked hard on World IPv6 Day, the 6th of the 6th, 2017, with some blogging and social media and more encouragement to our community to keep moving towards V6. And of course the blog has a lot of V6 articles as well. So the growth of V6, as I mentioned before, we now have 57% of members holding IPv6 addresses, but I think more importantly that over the last 12 months of 2017, we saw IPv6 capability in our region climbing from 7.5% of all internet users, at least of all users measured, up to 19%, going on for 20%. So that's a huge growth. Those figures come from the APNIC Labs data gathering system, which gathers, it receives at least 10 million measurements a day, so they're fairly comprehensive measurements of what's actually going on out there, and it really is a very good sign for IPv6 in our region. I've mentioned the blog a few times. It's become a really popular channel for communications with, not just with the APNIC community, but with the world on work that APNIC does. So all credit to Tony and Robbie and Sienna and the team there. They had a particularly successful month in December, but we're getting tens of thousands of views of that blog every month. Something very important is that we're enrolling the support and expertise of guest bloggers. So we've got, 108 different guests posting 127 times in 2017. We're trying to cover with subject matter all the economies of our region. And as you see with the word cloud here, the most popular topics are the ones that I've already mentioned today: IPv6 security, training, NOGs, DNS, and so forth. If you don't know the blog, then please do take a look at it. There's probably a new post about once a day or a few times a week on the APNIC blog. Conferences like the one that we're at now. So we had Apricot 2017, which included APNIC 43 last year. That was pretty successful, 650 delegates from 56 of our economies. 178 APNIC members were there, and we had very good remote attendance. There's some fellowship figures there as well, showing the gender balance of fellows. And then again at APNIC 44, normally a slightly smaller meeting, but we did have, as I mentioned before, a very successful fellowship program last time as well. We also had a very successful policy session last time at APNIC 44. So we hope the quality of these meetings is being well maintained, and I hope you would agree that this Kathmandu meeting this week has continued our sort of ongoing improvement and of success of these meetings. Now, the APNIC Foundation is something that has been discussed over the years. The first year of operation of the foundation, though, was 2017. It was established early in the year. The purpose of the foundation is to help APNIC to do more. It's to help build the APNIC development program. All of our development activities so far have been essentially funded by your fees, by member fees, and I think APNIC membership has proven itself to be extremely generous in supporting training that is done around the region, and technical assistance and all of the development activities that I mentioned. But we find that the demand for this work continues to increase. We're always being asked to do more than we can do, so the idea of the foundation is essentially to act as a fundraising vehicle for APNIC to do more. And as I've mentioned, we have started to receive successful grants through the foundation for different activities that contribute to internet development. So Duncan and Sylvia are seconded from APNIC to the foundation, working full-time, and we've had a very good year in finding the first 3 independent board members of the foundation. That's Edward Tian from China, Sharad Sanghi from India, Sylvia Samalan from Indonesia, and these 3 individuals are very long-standing internet business pioneers with a huge wealth of experience and good advice to bring to the board. Now, some really nice news is that ISIF Asia, which I think you would have heard about, it had its 10th birthday this celebration this week, actually. ISIF Asia has been chosen by the WSIS, the World Summit on Information Society, as a 2018 champion in the WSIS prizes. So it's in the draw for the sort of grand prize, which will be announced in March. But as you may have heard this week in the WSIS BOF, in the ISIF BOF, that program over 10 years has done a huge amount of work. It's supported many very interesting projects with funding that's come partly from APNIC but also from many other sources. And I'd like to give a shout out to Sylvia here, Sylvia, stand up. Sylvia's been working on this for 10 years, and it's a huge credit to you, Sylvia. Thanks. Now, moving right along, cooperating with the global internet community, we have APNIC Labs conducting research which is of global importance. In particular, those IPv6 capability measurements are a standard reference point for many people around the world. Jeff is very busy. He's working with Joao Damas these days as well, but he's bestowing his wisdom and his latest results on events and meetings around the world continually. Working these days, we've done a fair bit of support for ISOC in DNS-related measurement, particularly concerning the key sign and key rollover, which I'll mention further in a second. Other DNS and DNSSEC research, and also protocol research on things like QUIC and BBR and performance against TCP and so forth. And Jeff's a member of the ICANN's Security and Stability Advisory Committee. The DNSSEC KSK rollover, you might think it's not really an IP addressing issue, but we did feel that APNIC and other RARs as a channel for reaching the ISP community, we did feel that we could help ICANN in some way with reaching out to our community and promoting awareness of the key signing key KSK rollover. So we did that last year. Unfortunately, the rollover was postponed from October 17 to October 18. That gives us more time and a bit more work to do in continuing to promote that important event in the DNSSEC world. Many global engagement activities listed here. We represent APNIC members and our concerns, for instance, for IP addressing at a bunch of different places. I've mentioned law enforcement as an important stakeholder group, so we've got Europol and Interpol, we've got other security-related forums. If you know the acronyms GCCS and GFCE, we've been supporting awareness of IPv6 at APEC and APEC-TEL, and of course the Internet Governance Forum events, which are also an important way to get a technical community message and an understanding of some of the issues that we deal with. An important way to get that message out to a broader community, and we think these events are a very worthwhile thing to pursue. We're tracking our engagements, so-called, that is the contacts that we have with the community through the kinds of events that I've mentioned. We're tracking these things very carefully these days, showing the types of engagements and the locations that we visit. I think this is kind of important to show that We had more than 200 separate engagements in the last year, but what we see here is that 78 of those were training and technical assistance, 37 of those were technical security related, 27 were NOGs, 12 were member outreach, 12 of them were internet governance related, 13 of them intergovernmental organisation outreach, and so on and so forth. So you can see here where the priority of APNIC's engagement activities is being set, and I hope that all makes sense to you. We're collaborating as usual closely with other RARs, so we have staff exchanges, we have joint activities, joint board meetings as well on occasion with other RARs, as we did with APNIC in 2017. Also on the sort of global RAR scene was the ASO review. We had a session yesterday morning about the ASO review, which is all about the open consultative review of how the ASO is operating. So there's much more of this to come in the coming year as we actually look at the future structure of the ASO and what it should look like. Finishing up now, just a little from behind the scenes. This is a picture of APNIC staff from, not from last year, but from the year before. We had a staff retreat in the mountains outside Brisbane. But the sort of stuff that you don't necessarily see in terms of member service and internet development are things like our ISO 9001 quality assurance. We go through an annual audit and passed the audit last year. We've got a really busy billing and finance team. They had 8,200 invoices, 800 journals, 400 expense claims, nearly 4,000 credit card transactions to deal with, 420 travel bookings, 16 job vacancies filled last year, 42 staff in 33 different external training events. And we've got a bunch of systems, internal systems, which we're developing, things like SharePoint, NetSuite, Nexonia, etc. Something that's had a lot of focus in the last year has been something called Salesforce, which is our new customer relationship management system. It's helping us to track all of these engagements, as I said, and the people that we meet and the commitments that we make and the things that we need to do to follow up on those things. And it's a really successful deployment so far. Okay, just quickly, you'll hear more about this, but we've got our next conference coming up in Noumea in New Caledonia. I really hope that many of you will consider joining us in Noumea. It's a little far away for probably most of you here, but it will be another great event in the APNIC calendar of events in September 2018. Later on, Apricot 2019 in Korea, and APNIC 48, as has been announced, will be in Chiang Mai in Thailand in September 2019. I've mentioned the blog. I haven't said so much about social media, but you can find all of those contacts via those URLs there. And so that gives you the means to stay in touch with APNIC, and I really do invite and encourage you all to do so. So that's all from me. Thanks very much. Happy to answer any questions now or later. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. We do have a quick open mic of maybe 15 minutes. There's not enough time to go to the next agenda item, so if there are any other questions, we'd like it now, or any other suggestions, or if not, we'll have the first tea break. Please remember, the APNIC EC voting is continuing, so if you've not got your ballots or not have voted, please go ahead and do that during the break. The voting closes at 2:30 today. So having said that, let's have the first coffee break. We'll come back here at 11:30. Thank you. Okay, we have a...
Hello. Hi. Hello, everyone. Good morning. I'm Shaila from Bangladesh, and I'm EC member of BDNOC. I really want to appreciate and give you thanks to APNIC and the organizers for promoting female engineers in this sector and like for supporting the diversity. But as a next step to stay more connected to it, all the female engineers who are working in this AP region and in this community, and the girls who are more interested to work in future. So I would like to request the Secretariat if they agree to open a mailing list, something like that, so that we can join there and subscribe over there, and we can share our experiences, share the opportunities, and like we can encourage women. We can also like mentor them to work in this sector and to be connected with this community more. So I would like to request that Secretariat for that.
Thank you. I think that is a very good idea. We should do it. So, you know, let's do it. Yep. Paul? Yep. Thank you. Any other comments or feedbacks or requests for mailing list? If not, I think we should take a break and come back at 11:30. Thank you very much.